Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Elevation 5280 Sports is below the line, part of the Elevation 5280 Sports Network. Got a good show lined up for you tonight. We're going to do a quick recap of Dega, a quick preview of Dover Motor Speedway, and in the middle and between those two, we'll hear from Bill Lester on diversity and inclusion in NASCAR from an interview I did with him last fall. So, going to be a good show. We're going to go ahead and hop right into it because why not, right? NASCAR at Talladega, it never disappoints. The infield parties, and then, of course, the racing itself. Tyler Reddick wins after a last lap crash involving Michael McDowell and the rest of the field. So, Michael McDowell, there's a late block. It was a late block, not late by much, but late by enough where it wrecked the field. Keselowski kind of gets in the back of him. Maybe just barely turns him. Keselowski's momentum is slowed up, and Tyler Reddick wins the race. I mean, y'all saw the race. Y'all know what happened. Just a classic Talladega big one. Only three, cautions for cause in this race. You had the weird wreck of Bell and Haley, the Toyota implosion, which was pretty terrible, and then this big one late. So Tyler Reddick gets the win, celebrates with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan holds up Reddick's son, Bo. Reddick did lead 13 laps in this race, kind of becoming more of a way better super speedway racer than he has been these last few years. Won his duel at Daytona earlier in the year in February, and Sunday just was the best driver on that last lap. It didn't make a bad block. Was smart and just did what he needed to do. Kept his foot down. If you saw his in-car, it was pretty sick to see him just keep that foot down all the way through the tri-oval. I mean, through the mess that was that tri-oval crash. Reddick gets the win. Keselowski second. Gregson third. Stenhouse fourth. Bowman fifth. Anthony Alfredo in sixth. Good run for him. A few guys you won't see here: Bubba Wallace, Erik Jones, Denny Hamlin. They were all involved in a wreck. John Hunter Nemechek. It was just a chain reaction. Nemechek, Wallace, Jones stack up. If you haven't heard, Erik Jones will miss this weekend's race at Dover with a back injury. Corey Heim will fill in. Truck driver. He'll make his Cup debut, but that was just a bad instant. They're laying down the fastest laps of the day, and they crash. Really bad there. I'm kind of trying to transition this show in like a quick manner, like a quick rundown of what happened. That changed the race, though. That Toyota crash really changed this race. Shane Van Gisbergen, first Cup oval start, fourth Cup start overall. P28, not a great run. Hasn't been great in Cup this year, but he led 3 laps during pit stop cycles. Kind of led that outside lane late, and of course just got caught up in the big one. Before we do a quick Dover preview, let's go ahead and hear from former NASCAR driver Bill Lester on his role in diversity and inclusion in the sport.
When I told you I grew up in Northern California, I looked at NASCAR and never in a million years thought I would race in NASCAR. I thought my career would take me to the open wheel, Indy 500 or something like that, or sports car road racing, 24 hours at Daytona, 24 hours at Le Mans, whatever the case is. But never in a million years thought I would race in NASCAR, because as a very young kid, when I would watch NASCAR on ABC's Wide World of Sports, because that was the only broadcaster that was televising, that shows you how old I am. I saw these guys run around in circles with Confederate flags, behind the stands and talking with Southern drawls, and I couldn't understand half of what they were saying, and I couldn't understand why they're just running around in circles. When I looked at racing, I thought racing was an extension of what you do on the street, right? Which is turn right, turn left, upshift, downshift, accelerate, brake, not drop it into fourth gear and turn left. So I couldn't understand why anybody would want to do that form of racing, turning left, trying to stay off a concrete wall. I just couldn't fathom it. And lo and behold, I wind up coming to the Southeast with my wife's blessing, leaving a, again, huge, professional career to do something where I wasn't guaranteed an opportunity to make it. I didn't know if I was going to do it. She believed in me as much as I believed in myself, told me that, I'll support you. We can do this for about 3 years. We devised a game plan. I didn't do it on a wing and a prayer, but we basically had 3 years, or I had 3 years to make my dream a reality, or go back to, the fact that I was going to be working in the high tech sector for the rest of my career. So we committed wholeheartedly. We moved from California to Atlanta, which is where I am now. And, I kept on beating on doors and everything. And finally, the opportunity to race for Dodge, came together. And that's where, at 40 years of age, I became a rookie in the truck series. That is probably never going to happen again, right? You don't just wind up leaving your regular career at 37 to become a professional racer at, NASCAR level at 40. And then later on, as you know, in 2006, I was a Cup rookie at 45, at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So I know how Jimmy Johnson felt when he left NASCAR to become a rookie at 45 in IndyCar. It ain't easy.
It is not. And, it's so funny to me. Matt Crafton, I think, is the oldest truck driver right now, and he's 47, 48. And then you have 16-year-olds making starts in the truck series. And you go back and you look at even, when you were racing in trucks, and at the start of the truck series, I think the first truck race at Phoenix, like 85% of the field was either Cup regulars or Busch Series regulars. And it's just such a contrast to today. But that's just, it's how the sport's changed. And speaking of how the sport's changed, Bill, I mentioned earlier in the intro that you're a guy that we all should look up to, not as just a driver, but as a person. And a big part of that, to me at least, and I got a lot of this from reading your book and hearing other speeches, but was your push for diversity in NASCAR. I believe at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were even offered the role of heading up the Drive for Diversity program, which is still going strong today. But just kind of talk about how you think, and I, even if you downplay a little bit, I personally think you did a tremendous amount for it. You have guys, Bubba Wallace, Rajah Caruth now winning races, breaking through and just making the sport a better place for everybody. But what do you think you did to help the sport with diversity, which is an area where traditionally or stereotypically anyway, everybody's always said it struggled? And then what strides do you think NASCAR has made recently in that sector?
Well, I think just the fact that I was out there moved the needle, right? Because I can say there were a lot of what I consider closet NASCAR fans, a black and brown persuasion that wanted to be out there, but just didn't have anybody to pull for. It's kind of like we pull for people that look like us, that sound like us, that we can identify with, and that's kind of what was lacking in NASCAR. There was just a sea of white guys out there racing, and, for most of the African-American community and what have you, it just wasn't a really inviting environment when you saw Confederate flags. You didn't see anybody who you could really gravitate and pull for, per se, that might have looked like you. And so for my being out there, primarily in the truck series, but even when I made my Cup debut, I can't tell you how many people reached out to me and told me how proud they were of me and how big a deal it was for me to be out there. And it really warmed my heart because I didn't know I was making that much of an impression. I really didn't. I didn't go out there for that reason. I wanted to go out there I went out there because I wanted to compete at the top level of sports in this country. And I saw that it was no longer IndyCar racing. It was never really sports car racing, but it was NASCAR racing once IndyCar racing became divided, right? The IndyCar series kind of had issues with its management, its organizations. They changed their labeling. It became IndyCar, IRL, Indy Racing League and whatever. I can't remember all the iterations of sanctioning bodies, but while they floundered and bickered and whatever with each other, NASCAR continued to be there week after week. People knew when their favorite drivers were going to be racing, and it was consistent. And so, I saw what John Andretti did back in 1990 when he left a full-fledged, fully, sponsored and supported IndyCar program to come to race in NASCAR. We all thought he was crazy, but he did something that was on the cusp. He came over at the point where NASCAR was really blowing up in the 90s, right? In the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And once that happened, everybody wanted to get into NASCAR. And so I did it because, like I said, I wanted to become a professional race car driver because I wanted to be on the biggest platform, biggest stage, racing against the best of the best. And the whole diversity thing and inclusion thing came along, kind of on its own, because that was not what I was staking my flag, in the sand about. That was not what I was doing it for. But I was really, really overwhelmed by the amount of support that I got, from the black and brown community that said, now that you're out there, I feel good about coming out to the racetrack. I can see you out there and I can support you. And that really wound up being important to me because, believe me, Samuel, I thought I was on an island when I was out there because I was not embraced in the stands and the fans, for whatever reason. Going to Martinsville was very difficult. Going to Talladega was extremely difficult. They didn't want to see me out there. But the thing that I can say definitively, that in the garage area, everybody respected me. It wasn't as if I was a diversity driver out there having no business being out there. They knew I could drive. They saw my talent. They saw my skills. I could do, what I needed to do. And I carried myself well. And I think all of them appreciated that.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you taking the time for that interview I think last September it was when I did that. Been a while now. But let's move on to the Monster Mile, shall we? Dover Motor Speedway. The big name on the entry list besides Corey High making his Cup debut is Jimmy Johnson, 7-time Cup champ, I believe a 10-time Dover winner. Of course, Jimmy in the next gen era hasn't been great. After Texas, we all celebrated when he had a lead lap finish. So that kind of just shows you, where he's at on the totem pole right now. But maybe he runs top 25 this week, maybe top 20 if they bring him a good car and there's some attrition. As far as who I'm picking to win this race, Dover is traditionally a track that goes on long green flag runs. That favors Kyle Larson. If it's a late restart, I'm going William Byron, but I'm going to go Larson. I think this race will boil down to a long green flag run. Byron's going to be in contention. All of Hendrick is going to be in contention. All 4 Hendrick cars except Byron have won there, and Byron's been really close a couple of times. Larson had a great car there last year and then got taken out by Chastain early in that race, if you remember. So weekend schedule, practice 10:30 a.m. Eastern, FS1, PRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio. Qualifying 11:20 a.m. Eastern, FS1, PRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio. The Worth 400, 2 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, FS1, PRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio for that one. So yeah, Larson is my win pick. Dover is it's a pretty crazy track. It's not called the Monster Mile for no reason. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be a good race. The last 2 have been rained out, pushed to Monday. Hopefully this race runs on Sunday. Haven't even looked at the weather yet for Dover. Scared to be honest. Scared to look at the weather for this weekend. Dover Motor Speedway. I'm just a little nervous about it. So I don't know. But this is all for this show, guys. I know shorter shows. That's kind of what I want to do. Give you all a racing rundown, a recap, preview, and an interview clip every week. And make them kind of snappy, so you can get through them quick. Be a quick listen. So thank you all. Make sure to follow the Elevation 5280 Sports Facebook page. Subscribe on the YouTube channel if you're watching over there. And go give them a click at elevation5280sports.com. My name is Samuel Stubbs from Below the Line. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Goodbye, everybody, and have a great week. I'll talk to you next Wednesday.